So you, besides making a lot of music, you also collaborate with a lot of musicians. I mean, you go through your Instagram and it's just like you have all these different amazing musicians that you collaborate with on your records and whatnot. And so for your own projects, how do you choose collaborators and what kind of things are you looking for in a musician when they play on your record or perform with you live?
Well, a lot of the people are just people I've met in live situations and I loved and was like, man, we gotta do something. So that's often the jumping off point. Often there is a relationship and that is based on either like they're in the community of people I work with and I've seen them live or something like that. So it's usually not an accident. And usually it's taken quite a few years for it to happen. It's very rare that, someone ends up on a cartoons record that I don't really know. Although it has been happening a little bit on the last few. And, people I was just a fan of from a distance that were just weirdly down and sent something back very quickly. But for the most part, like Joanna Teeters, I've been working with for maybe like 13, 14 years now. Um, Julia Zivic about 10, these are people I've been working for a long time. And they're kind of, they're on my mind when I'm making music. So if I'm doing something that fits their voice, I'm going to send it to them first. And, there's been other people that have kind of come into that crew that I, love to send stuff to when I hear them on it. And when new friends approach from Instagram, sometimes they're fresh on your brain. Just send them a little Dropbox and say, "Hey, man, if you're hearing anything on this, let me know." And I just like to plant a lot of seeds with that kind of stuff. As far as getting people to collaborate on my own records, just being very low pressure about it and keeping it try to fun and not too hey, I need you to do this by Friday, please. Um, and generally it takes a while to do it, but it's worth it.
And then let's flip this, because not only are you have a lot of collaborators on your music, but you also collaborate with a lot of other musicians on their projects. Um, how does one become a good collaborator in music? And what is the difference between working on someone else's project versus working on your own?
Yeah, I think working on your own definitely allows you to take the ego out of collaborations with other people a lot more, or at least it has for me. And, expanding on my own voice and like taking projects as far as I can um, has, you know, allowed me to understand my role in a group a lot more and things that I am going to be good at and things I should maybe, speak up because like that's my strength. And other things where maybe, I'll give it 5 minutes before I say anything because like I'm not quite hearing it yet. And it's good to know what your strengths are. And sometimes, being in the studio and exercising this muscle as much as you can allow you to know what that uh, good part of you in a collaborative setting is. And I've definitely learned how to quiet my voice a little bit, for better or for worse, I suppose. But I'm trying to not be as imposing, and when I'm producing other people, I need them to be excited. That's number one rule. And it's not really about me in that situation. And I'm trying to read their mind a little bit. It's like, part therapist, part mind reader, and then part, understanding the sounds that get them excited from hearing their previous records and stuff. Like, what are the sounds that make them want to sing? What are the sounds that make them? And using some of those sounds, maybe kick sounds or synth sounds or whatever stuff that I feel like is relevant, and then making something with that kind of stew that's original and between me and that person. And I generally find that I'm best at that stuff when it's just me and one person. And, once you bring in a room of writers, it can get a little hairy, but, requires even more of the, you know, let's only speak up at the right moment because everybody's just saying stuff, you know, let's only contribute stuff that's really moving things forward, first down every time we speak. So not that I'm even a football guy, but
Well, we understand the analogy. Sports and music, they go hand in hand sometimes. um, what are some good guidelines for younger musicians when it comes to collaboration? And well, the way I want you to think of this is obviously you've been doing music a long time now, and you've done music school. We've talked about some of the transformations you've had with playing for yourself and playing for the musicians on stage as opposed to playing for the audience and like the straight ahead jazz scene. Um, if you were to tell your younger self some advice about collaboration, what would you tell him?
Um, just like it's good to have a consistently good attitude, and I think it's easy to like be moody and stuff when you're, an emotional musician that's trying to figure it out, and it can be very frustrating when things aren't going right. But I think it's really good to just remember to not like, you know, take that on other people and learn, um, I don't know, healthy ways to express yourself in that way. I guess it's more communication stuff. When I was younger, I wish I could have been better about that. Wasn't even playing related, but kind of is. And being a good hang is such an important part of what we do. And I think it took me till college to understand, what being a good hang was a little bit, and how that related to music and making people want to be involved in your projects. Because good energy is infectious, and that's really how I've gotten people to do my projects a lot of the time. I feel like because they just approach me, they're like, "I see what you guys are doing over here, and it seems fun, so I want to be a part of it." So I've been lucky that has been the source of a lot of the collaborations I've been doing. So when I wish I had figured that out a little earlier, instead of being like, why isn't this working? Um, you just want to create a thing that people want to be a part of.
So the good hang idea is one that's kind of come up a lot in music circles, and I don't think it really gets defined very well. What does that look like in terms of being a musician? Like obviously talk about like, oh, being having a good attitude, but is it anything more than that? Like how would you define being a good hang for maybe let's say if you're working on someone else's project, what does being a good hang what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that experience like now as a professional musician?
Yeah, I think part of it's also being responsible. I think when I say good hang, I think that's included in that. It's like being on time. Like understanding. Once you're your own band leader, you start understanding how much money it is to do anything. So, you start taking that mindset into other people's projects. And yeah, I'm very rarely late, you know, and I think that helps a lot. I think that's like 30% of what I'm talking about. And, learning the songs well enough that the rehearsals are fun is maybe another 20%. Because once it starts getting into the territory where people realize, like, oh, this guy hasn't learned any of this, your good hang factor goes down like a lot. Because after the rehearsal, everyone's just like, "Oh God, this is going to be a nightmare." Like it's no fun anymore. There's a certain amount of being a responsible person that helps the good hang happen. It allows it to be easy and like have the illusion that what we do is not that difficult. And I think as a bass player and as a supportive person, you gotta like do what you can to make rehearsal fun and make the show like even that much better. And I've been thinking a lot about this thing that was written at it was in my high school band like room, and it was that rehearsal is the time to learn everybody else's part. And you know I think I've taken that, and I think I was overthinking other people's part a little bit for a while, but now I've learned how to listen and really take that in. Not overthink whatever other people else. Oh my God, this guy's messing up. How am I going to tell him afterwards? A lot less of that these days. Um, More just letting it happen and seeing the best we can do as a group.
So you mentioned 30% of it being on time, 20% learning the material. What do you think is the other 50% of the equation?
oh, just having a sense of humor, and,
Okay.
you know, uh, you know, uh, picking up the phone, as much as the group text suck, responding to those, you know, and I don't know, just having a smile on your face is underrated. It's I know we're all going through it a lot of the time, but while you're with people, these are your family, and it's time to celebrate and enjoy where you are. So, you know, if you're gonna have, it's okay to have days that are off or whatever, but don't let that lead you down for 6 months, and then people are like, Jesus, every time I see this guy, he keeps talking about this, this car, he's this car insurance, like, he's obsessed with this thing. I can't even talk to this guy. So you just gotta, that's part of being a good hang too, is just, have another hobby, have something you can talk about, be a person. Um, at least for me, that is. I'm sure it's different for every circle.